Welcome back, everybody. So as you can see, I'm back in the woods, and behind me there's this amazing carpet of bluebells covering the forest floor. It's mid-May in the UK at the moment, so it's peak bluebell season. And I've got here just before sunrise just to try and capture some of that nice soft early morning light, so the rays of light coming through the trees, because I think they really complement the kind of enchanted feeling that the bluebell brings out in the woodland. So yeah, this episode's all about just having a bit of fun, hopefully getting some nice images. I've got a few compositions in my mind already that I want to capture, but also I just want to have a bit of fun and see what I come up with and see what the light gives me today. So yeah, we'll join you behind the camera now and we'll set up some compositions. So I'm just setting up my first shot now, and there's quite a few things I liked about this. It's very close to where I started the video actually. I just moved back a bit. We've got this tree here and I love the textures on it with the ivy. It has this nice enchanted look to it, and we have some bluebells in the foreground here that lead all the way off into the mid and background, which is great, adds some nice depth and it just looks amazing. And then we've also got these lovely fresh green leaves on the tree here, and they're only this kind of lovely fresh colour in spring, in early spring, so it's really nice to capture that. We've also got this great curve, this S curve that leads all the way through the image, so it kind of gives you a bit of your eye, a bit of a journey through the image, which I really like. It's always great. And then normally I try to avoid shooting into the sunlight in my woodland images, but because we have quite a lot of low-hanging cloud today and the sun's coming through it and it's diffusing it, it's creating this lovely golden glow in the back of the image, and I actually think it really works. So I'm going to get a few shots here and then I'm going to put them up on the screen and we can take a look through them later. Okay, I better get shooting. Okay, I'm getting quite excited now. As you can see behind me, we're getting some of that amazing early morning golden sunlight coming through the trees. So while it's still here, because it only lasts about half an hour to an hour in the morning, then after that the sunlight coming through the woods gets a little bit distracting and a bit harder to find a nice composition. Because I'm trying to get that kind of golden spring feeling to the images, I think I better concentrate on getting the images now. So I'll join you behind the camera and I'll talk you through some of the pictures I'm setting up, and then we can have a look through them together later. Okay, I'll join you on the other side. Okay, so I'm just setting up another shot here, and it is one that I've taken before in different conditions, so in the fog, but I've never taken it in kind of the full bloom of all of the bluebells, and it just looks absolutely lovely. So I'm using this kind of main tree as a kind of anchor point, the main focus. It's got these nice textures where some ivy's been on the tree, and I like the kind of lean that it's got to it. And then we have this really, really incredible S-curve through the image. And then in the background again, we've got this lovely golden sunlight just coming through the trees. It's being, like I said before, it's being diffused by the clouds. So it looks really nice, and it has this kind of nice sort of golden early morning feel to it, which I was going for. So I'll get a few shots here as well, and then we can also look at those. Just in case anyone's worried, I know this woods very well, and I've got lots of little paths and there's some clearings that I know, so that I avoid standing on any bluebells. And then when I'm walking around, I just take the main footpath through here. And then I usually take my images from there or from any of the little clearings, because I think that's really important, is just to be very careful with the bluebells, not to trample on them, just so other people can enjoy them and so that they don't get destroyed. So I've got this scene set up, which is really lovely. We've got this nice tree of all this texture and this beautiful little sapling here with the fresh green leaves, spring leaves. And then we even have this nice line going down here, which is just like a little dip in the woodlands, which is really nice. And also the great side light. And there's a couple of things that I'm being really careful of here. One is we keep occasionally getting a little breeze or a bit of wind, and I'm shooting at quite a high F number. When you do that, sometimes the shutter speed can be relatively low, and you've got to be really careful that it's not so low that it causes the leaves to blur when they're in the wind. Sometimes you can use this for a nice creative effect, but in this case I want them nice and sharp. So often I'll need to compensate with either ISO or taking the f-stop down a little bit, and then I can have a faster shutter speed. 1/200, 1/250 usually freezes most action, but it's probably a bit overkill. You can get away with less in a scene like this, as long as the wind's not too strong. So that's just a top tip to watch out for, and something I've done so many times. It's so frustrating when you get back home and you realise you've not got the right shutter speed and the leaves have blurred. And then another thing is I've got quite strong side light on this tree, and I've also got to be really careful I don't blow the highlights on these leaves. Again, I've done that so many times and it's really, really easy to do. So usually I take multiple exposures, and you want to understop by a bit, maybe at least one stop and sometimes even more, just to make sure you don't blow the highlights. And if you do multiple exposures that way, you should still get good detail in the shadows and the highlight regions. But again, just something to watch out for with the side light is that you don't blow the highlights on the leaves. Really easy to do. Anyway, while this scene's still looking amazing, I better get shooting. So I'm probably taking a bit of a gamble here. I may regret this later, but I think I'm going to try and go on a little bit of an explore and try and find somewhere new, maybe somewhere I'd normally just sort of walk past. Hopefully there's some nice bluebells and wildflowers. I'm going to just try and see what I can find just for the sake of exploration. So, okay, I'm going to do this. Let's go and have a look. So I just found this incredible spot. I decided to take a turn off the main path and just explore a new part of the woodlands. And I think it's somewhere where you wouldn't normally go if you went for a walk or something. And I really like that. I find that really exciting. It's almost a little scene that was hidden and you'd never know about it unless you go out and explore and look for it. And if you just look, we've got this incredible trees here and here with their green leaves on. And as I said, it's just early spring and those leaves are changed to a darker colour later on and they don't look quite as vibrant as and exciting. We've also got this amazing tree here with all of the green moss on it, which just looks amazing. So I've kind of set up a shot and I'll show you what I've done and I'll join you behind the camera. It's really exciting. So I've just got my shot set up now. I'm using the back and side light over here to create some depth and it's illuminating these leaves. It just looks amazing. They've got this nice glow to them. Obviously we've got these lovely bluebells here. This is kind of, in a way, my main subject, these two trees. So I've tried to position them around the other trees. I've had to do lots of micro adjustments of the tripod because there's some trees behind here. So I've had to move it around really slightly. I'll just show you. Yeah, see, like for example, over here, we start getting some overlap, so I'm just being really careful. I'm trying to find a good compromise between making sure we get our subjects in and separating out each of these trees. I've got a bit of overlap here, but I'm not too worried about that. I think that looks okay still, and I'd rather get this and this in. And I love the texture and the moss on these trees. So yeah, I think it's a really incredible scene. I'm really excited. Also, if you notice, we've got this darker green tree behind here, and this provides really good contrast for our light green leaves here with the bit of side light. So I'm using that to my advantage. And the last thing to note is we've got this lovely streak of light through here, which adds a bit of depth to the image. Okay, I'm going to get some shots while the light's still good. Really excited about this one. So I think this is a really good point to call an end to the video, and what an amazing scene. I'm really glad to have found this. It was off the main path a bit, so it felt a bit exciting and it was a bit of an adventure to find it. But yeah, it just looks amazing. I'm really excited to see how the photos came out. I think I got some really nice ones, but it was just really lovely to have been out exploring and found some new places that I can come back to later on. So yeah, thank you so much, and I'll join you inside when we have a look at the photos. Okay, and welcome back. That was a really amazing morning of shooting. The bluebells look really great this year, and it was really exciting to find that new location when I took a turn off the normal path I take through the woods. And that's one of my favourite things about woodland photography, is kind of the exploration aspect, that some days you walk around for hours and you don't find anything good. And then other days you get lucky like I just did, and you find a really exciting new location. And I already can't wait to go back to that on some different days with different weather, just to see how it looks. So what I've done now is I've loaded up some of the pictures I took on the computer. And I've also loaded up some from around a week ago. I did a little bit of scouting in that first area, just to try and find some nice compositions. And I think it'd be great to compare those from the different days and see what's worked, what hasn't quite worked, and some of the learning points. So let's have a look at those now. Okay, so I've got the first image loaded up on the screen now. And I think this one's worked fairly well. There's quite a few things I like about it. And there's a few things I think I'd probably change if I was going to go back and shoot it again. So I really like the strong kind of S-curve going all the way through the image, because I think it gives a nice sort of leading line for the viewer to kind of travel through the image. So I think that's worked really well. It's a good use of that path. And I really like the kind of splash of green from the little spring leaves over here. And I'm quite happy with the tree in the foreground and the bluebells, because I think it helps to add some depth, and I really like the texture on the tree as well. One of the things I'm unsure about is I think maybe I've made it slightly too dominant in the frame, possibly. I think it's a little bit too visually heavy, this main tree. I could have maybe backed off a bit or used a slightly wider focal length. It's only a minor thing, but yeah, I think it's maybe just a little bit too visually heavy. The other thing I'm undecided about is the sun coming through the tree here. I'm not normally a fan of shooting straight into the sun in woodland photography. I think it kind of works quite nicely here, just because of the theme, because it's kind of spring. But again, I also think it could be a little bit distracting, especially they've got all the highlight spots here, and we've clearly got some blown highlights. Yeah, I'm a bit undecided really. I like the glow from it, but I'm just not sure if it's a bit too distracting. It'd be interesting to know your thoughts on that one. Okay, so I've got the second image loaded up here. This one, I'm really, really happy with how this one's come out. And actually this tree here, you can see it featured in the first photo. So if I just bring that up on the screen now, it's actually this one over here. So I just moved a bit further along the path. And I think this one's just a bit cleaner. It's got a bit less, it's a bit less busy. And I like the positioning of this. And I think it's kind of got enough separation, unlike the first one. And I really love the texture on this tree where there's been some ivy on it by the looks of it. And it's left kind of all of these imprints on it, which is really nice. Yeah, I really love the glow through the trees. These highlights I think are a little bit blown, but I don't mind because I'm kind of shooting directly into the sun. And I don't think they're too distracting as within the first one. They just have a kind of nice glow to them out of focus in the background. Again, we've got this really nice S-curve through the image, which yeah, really helps to just sort of travel through it. The thing I was being really careful of here was to leave kind of enough space, so enough breathing room between the main subject here, because this is also quite visually heavy. And just by having this extra space here, I think that's helped just to kind of, yeah, create a resting place in the image over on this path. Again, I really like the fresh greens over here and over here. Yeah, I'm just really happy with this one overall. With this one, it is actually a spot I've visited many, many times, and I knew the composition ahead of time, so that really helped. I shot it in lots of different conditions, and I was just kind of waiting for the right conditions for when the bluebells were back. And I think that really paid off today. I'll just also show you one that I took just a week before this one, and it's actually quite surprising to see how much the woodlands has changed since then. You can see in the background there's so many more leaves on the one I just shot, and even over here as well. And I think what that did in the more recent one was it kind of created a bit of a green-yellow colour cast to the image, and it's quite nice as well. It has that fresh spring feeling, which I'm happy about. But I think I do prefer this one. It's just kind of got a warmer, nicer atmosphere to it, in my opinion. And also having less leaves in the tree has created the kind of stronger contrast in the lights and the dark regions over here. And I kind of prefer the dark shadows on the main subject, this tree here, and the side light on it. I don't know, it looks a lot more pleasing to me. But that's just my opinion. I'd really love to hear what you think about it. The thing I prefer in the more recent images is these little pops of green here, this like nice fresh spring feeling. And obviously the bluebells are a bit more prominent in it. But for the atmosphere, yeah, I think I actually prefer the one from a week ago, which is really interesting. So I think what we can do is we can move on to the next scene now, which was the one with the ivy-covered trees. So this one, I took a panorama, so this is 3 different images stitched together. And again, I'm really, really happy with this one. It's a similar composition in a way to the previous one, where I have a kind of heavy element on the left-hand side. So these two elements here, the fresh green leaves here and this ivy-covered tree. And then we have a lot of breathing room, so a lot of space over here. Because I think this is so visually heavy, it's nice to have that space over here just to, rest the eye, as with the other image. And there was also a bit of a dip in the woods, which created this really lovely leading line again, all the way through the image. It's quite subtle, but I really, really liked it. And of course, we've got these nice kind of rays of morning light, and you only really get the light coming through really early in the morning like this. After that, it starts becoming a bit too distracting, and the light sort of scatters everywhere. It helps to create this lovely strong side light on the trees over here. And it just illuminated this little sapling that's popping up here and created this amazing glow to the leaves. And that little pop of colour really adds to the image. It's just a nice little accent. So here's another image I've got here. This one was taken a little bit earlier. It's a bit more punchy, sort of contrasty. I took this exposure down a bit. And if you remember earlier, I was mentioning about the highlights. And on this one, actually, I think I did, even on this slightly underexposed image, I still managed to blow the highlights a little bit. I don't think it's too noticeable, and I have softened the image a bit, which has helped. But even when I was trying my best to avoid it, I did manage to clip some of the highlights a little bit on that tree, so just be really careful with that. But I don't think it matters too much, because I really like the atmosphere of the shot, and I preferred the kind of more underexposed version of this image because I think it helps the light patches stand out a bit more, and I just think it adds a bit of drama to the shot. And then what I did was I was playing around with the relationship between these two trees here. This one maybe is a little underexposed, so I might go back and look at this one again and maybe do a bit of exposure blending with the other ones I took, the other exposures I took of this scene. But yeah, overall I'm quite happy with it. I like the leading line from the light here, but maybe it's just a little bit too dark. I maybe could bring back some of the shadows a bit. But yeah, just to show you another shot from this second area. While we're looking at this scene, I just remembered I should bring up this image. This one was from a week before the video shots, and I'll zoom in because I think it's a good example of where I had the shutter speed wrong. So you can see these leaves, the wind's blown them. Because the shutter speed was a bit low, it's caused a bit of blurring, which isn't what I wanted to go for in this image. I want them nice and sharp. So it's just to show you an example of how that can look if you do get the shutter speed wrong, and just to reinforce the fact that you really need to watch out for that sometimes. Okay, let's move on to the next scene, which was that amazing scene I found by chance when I was just exploring around and trying out some new areas. So I got two different images here. I got a single shot here. I'll put up what the settings were on the screen for you as well so you can see that. And yeah, I really, really loved the glow of these trees here. I think I maybe was just there at the right time. And the light was just illuminating the spring leaves on these two trees. And I just really love how they look. And I think the reason it works quite well is because we've got these darker trees in the background, and they've created a strong contrast between the light and dark regions over here and here. And I really like the fresh green colours over in the further background back here. The trees as well were really interesting. These two had lots of moss on them, which is really nice. It added some nice texture and just kind of added to that kind of enchanted woodland feeling that I really love. And again, we've got really strong, nice side light on the trees, which has helped to create just a bit of shape and form to them. And yeah, of course, the bluebells again look really lovely. It's not quite as, there's not quite as many as in the first sets of image, but I really like them. It looks a bit more wild and a bit more organic. I also took a panorama of this scene as well. I thought it really deserved it just because it was a nice epic sort of long scene with all these really interesting trees. And so again, it's a very, very similar scene. But just while I remembered, I was trying to avoid the overlap of the trees quite a lot of this scene. And it's a very similar shot again, but I think it just kind of deserved that longer, wider panorama, just because it's kind of a big, epic, long scene with lots of interesting elements. And one thing I was thinking about when I took this was I was trying very hard to avoid overlap of all of the trees so that they stood out. So it's kind of a standard thing to do in woodland photography, is to try and avoid trees overlapping. But sometimes when I was making the adjustments, so many different adjustments for all of these different trees, I noticed I was starting to sacrifice my main subject, which was these two trees here, which was the main thing that drew me to this scene initially. And so I had to make a little bit of a compromise. So I've got a bit of overlap here and a bit over here, which ideally I wouldn't have. But in order to make sure these were still the main focus of the image and you could still see all these amazing little green leaves, I did have to make some compromises. And I'm not too bothered about that. And I think that's something to remember is, Sometimes if you get too fixated on trying to separate out the different trees and elements, you might be sacrificing your main subject. So always take a little step back and remember what it was that drew you to the image initially. But yeah, I'm really, really happy with this scene, and it was really amazing to find that new location. Definitely going to revisit it later in the year and see how it looks in different weather conditions and different seasons. So yeah, I hope this analysis has been really helpful. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. It was a really fun one for me to make, and it was really great to share that experience of being in the woodlands in springtime and seeing all of the bluebells. I also hope you found it helpful and hopefully learnt something. If you have found it helpful, I'd ask if you could hit the like, the subscribe and the notification bell, because I'll have a lot more woodland photography videos coming soon. So I just wanted to say a massive thank you for watching, and I'll join you next time.